was thought of primarily as a male quality, especially in the terms of military leadership. All right. So this is now the one that's a different shift, because that great man, what they are referring to in this theory is they are referring to a leadership was thought of a primary male quality. Okay, so that's quite unfair for the female, but that is what the theory is all about. So the great man theory, it's because of the primarily this is a male quality, especially in terms of the military leadership. Okay, so the great man is but as you can see, if you are going to look at in the military right now, there are so many women who excel also in in this type of field. Okay, so it's I just have to leave it up with you to think about it. All right. Okay, great. All right, so number two, another theory is also trait theory. Okay, so similar in some ways to great man. Trait assume that people inherit certain qualities and traits that makes them better suited to leadership. Okay, remember, don't get confused. It just says here is a trait theory. Okay, so we are talking about here the behavioral shared by leaders. Okay, for example, traits like extroversion, self confidence, and courage are all traits that could potentially be linked to great leaders. Okay, take note, don't get confused. It's just saying like this extroversion, this self confidence, and courage are being inherited because of the environment. If you are born, for example, in a family who owns several businesses already, basically your mindset will also be influenced by your parents. Okay. So if your parents already are leaders and you are born there, meaning to say there is a tendency that you will also be part and become a leader because you are being trained that way. So when you say extroversion, that's the opposite of introvert, meaning that you are a person who is willing to go out and mingle with different types of people. And that's the way it is in business. Okay. So other than the extroversion, you have to be confident about yourself. Now, the question is here is this: how will you be able to gain confidence? Okay, by the way, if I'll ask you now, are you confident enough in your, do you know yourself very well? Without asking about leadership, are you confident about yourself? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very good. Yes, you are confident. Now, try to ask, why is it that you are confident about yourself? Why? Because, why is it that you are confident? Because you are very sure at what you're saying, because you know yourself better than others. Okay, so you have the courage to talk to people, and this basically sometimes a leader should have a his own belief and principles that cannot be persuaded by other people. Okay. All right. So next. So if particular traits are key features of leadership, then how do we explain people who possess those qualities that are not leaders? Okay. So in other words, let's try to go back. Now, the argument here is this. If we in particular traits are likely key features of leadership, there are also people who doesn't want to become a leader, but they are also extrovert. They are confident. Okay, as you can see, there are some people who are very confident about themselves. They love to mingle with people and talk to people that they and also, but they don't like to become a leader. All right. So in other words, this theory also it's quite questionable, because if this is the only one that we have to understand along the way, we can also people who excel in different types of profession possessing this kind of traits, but they don't like to become a leader. All right. So, for the sake of argument of this particular truth, let us try to proceed. All right. So, this question is one of the difficulties in using trait theories to explain leadership. As you can see, it says here trait theories of leadership there's an ambition and energy, there is a desire to lead, there's an honesty, integrity, and self confidence. But again, in this type of theory, sometimes it does not really conform of what is happening in the society, because there are really people who are extrovert, who are really very confident about themselves, but however, they don't like to lead. All right, for some reasons. Okay, now, so let us try to understand the different types of traits. So that's the reason why I asked you a while ago, are you confident about yourself? And you said yes. Okay, so these are the character traits. Okay, so having a strong character means making decisions based on a set of core values. Here are several examples of a positive character traits. Okay, so try to ask yourself now, are you ambitious? Okay, are you creative? Are you compassionate? Are you patient? Are you courageous? Are you flexible? Are you honest? Are you humble? Are you honorable or possess a high integrity? Are you loyal? Are you conscientious, persistent, resilient? All of these are the character traits, right? Even if you're going to ask me, do I possess these all traits? I would say no. Sometimes I'm very, very impatient. Okay? All right? So, if you're going to ask me, am I loyal? Sometimes. But when you try to look at loyalty, loyalty is no questions. You are there. Okay? So, in other words, it's very, very difficult to conclude that a leader possesses this kind of traits, because no one is perfect. Remember this one, don't get confused. These are all theories. Okay? There is no such thing as this one is uh, universally accepted at this is the way it is. No, because it remains to be theory as of the moment. Right? So it remains to be proven. All right. So there are plenty of people who possess the personality traits associated with leadership, yet many of these people never seek out position of leadership. You see? So this is what I'm saying. So it, a while ago, we were trying to distinguish between a follower and a leader. And we try to look at, do you think are the traits of a leader is also the same as follower? Yes, it could be. But there are some character traits of a follower who the same as the leader, but he doesn't want to become a leader. All right? Because for some reasons. Now, if you're going to ask me, like for example, am I a leader? Maybe in a certain situation. When I used to work out there, I have no choice, because you will be working out there. You really have, because take a look of this one. The reason why you have to understand this also, because you are very young. Sooner or later, you have to pursue with your goals. Maybe some of you might want to become a supervisor, a manager, a general manager, or somebody. Okay, you have to make names in the organizations. Okay, you have to carve your own name in terms of practicing your professions in the long run. And then going back to my case, I've been there. uh my ambition long time ago is just simple, just to become a manager. Okay, and then I rose like I became an assistant manager, and then become a manager, and then from there, and I said to myself, no, I don't want to aim for something high. That's enough for me. And that's the reason why I pursued my studies, and then I shifted my career and become a teacher. All right? Why? My own personality is, I don't think I'll become a leader, because sometimes I'm very, very impatient. Okay? So I know myself very well. Number two is this. Why do you have to aspire so high when in fact I don't need them? But that could be very possible if I pursue my career there in the corporate world. But it is always my choice. All right, you see. So we have different. Though I have the different traits that we were talking about. I would say yes, I have. But sometimes there are some character traits there I don't have those character traits. All right. So there are also people who lack some of the key traits often associated with effective leadership, yet still excel in leading the groups. Okay. Now, Going back, there are some people also who lack those character traits, but they tend to excel at leading groups. Okay, there are some people who doesn't who did not possess those traits, but sooner or later, because of their ambition, they take several chances. In other words, it goes with time because the passion is there. Okay, so at the end of the day, it is always your choice. All right, so Asyncs three dimensions of personality. Okay, I think we have to understand this one. So I think uh, introversion, you have encountered this one maybe in your psychology subjects, but we will just have to refresh your mind so that we can understand and link this to our topic, which is leadership. Okay, according to Asyncs, introversion involves directing attention to inner experiences, while extroversion relates to focusing attention outward on other people and the environment. Okay, now if I'll ask you now, ask yourself, are you introvert or extrovert? Okay, so I'm sure you have several answers there because, as what I have said, we have different types of personality. Now, again, if you will ask me, am I extrovert? I am a person who possesses extrovert personality or extroversion. I would say I am this introversion. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm scared of people facing the public. I am. However, I don't feel comfortable. I get stressed with numbers of people out there. Okay, I love to stay alone. I'm enjoying myself in a secluded area. Just like here, I am in Phuket. We are surrounded with forest. This is my environment. I love this place. All right. But for those people perhaps who are extrovert, they cannot stay in a place wherein they don't doesn't have more people because this personality they love to interact with people. All right, link with more people. So you see, so if you're going to ask me there, is there something wrong being introvert or extrovert? No, you are okay. We are okay because that is our own personality. Okay? So don't worry if you're a person who loves to be alone, if you're a person who feels stressed when you are in the crowd, it is okay. You are normal. All right? If you're a person who cannot stand because there's no people around you, it is also okay. Right? So it is good that we will discuss this because for an introvert to understand these people who are very extrovert, like these people are so loud, etc., so on and so forth, outgoing person, etc. And the extrovert personality also will also understand because it's really very important for us to understand this type of personality because whether you like it or not, you will encounter this if you'll be working in the organization. Okay, so we have to respect one another. So a person high introversion might be quiet. Oh, again, an introversion is very quiet and reserved. This is true. Okay, because I am using myself an example. I don't want a long conversation for nothing. This is my personality. I don't want long talks. Okay. While an individual with high extroversion might be sociable and outgoing. So this extroversion is the opposite of introvert. They are very sociable people. They love to go out. They love more fun, etc. So on and so forth. Okay. But again, there is no right or good personality. We are all okay. Okay. Another one is neuroticism, emotional stability. This dimension, according to Asing traits, theory is related to moodiness versus even temperateness. Okay, sometimes in our case, we get irritated and we become moody. Okay, so sometimes um, all of a sudden we are happy and and sometimes we get mad, etc., so on and so forth. But again, this is just normal because that's your personality. Neuroticism refers to an individual's tendency to become upset or emotional. Okay, again, neuroticism. These are persons who are prone to feel upset and very emotional people. Okay, now the question is this: is being emotional person, is it a good quality to become a leader? What do you think? Being emotional, for example, given the fact that you are a person who possesses too much of your emotions, do you think this is a good quality to become a leader? Mm-hmm. All right. This always a questions. Okay. Just like, for example, like in my class the other day, I asked them, normally, what do you use? Is it the EQ or the IQ? All right. So the IQ sometimes, for me, if it is in business, sometimes you really have to use your intellectual or in high IQ most of the time. But sometimes also you have to use your emotional quotient, especially nowadays. Okay, we have to maintain our mental health, and we have to be balanced most of the time. So it is still good if you become a leader and you possess these emotions, because emotions in some other way you can use this as your strength when you are going to relate those people. If you are a leader who is really really very very tough, you tend not to connect because you don't understand how people feels. All right. So again, there's no wrong if you are introvert or extrovert. There is no wrong being emotional, but sometimes we just have to control our emotions most of the time. Okay, because especially if you are leading a group. Another one is psychotism. Later, after studying individuals, Erickson added personalities dimension called psychotism. Is a trait of theory. All right. So individuals who are high on this trait tend to have difficulty dealing with reality and maybe as an antisocial, hostile, and non-empathic. In this case here, this is really very. This is very critical because this is the opposite of showing empathy. Sometimes you don't have any feelings at all, and there is a tendency that you will become manipulative. But again, if you try to look at go if you try to go back to your principles of management, there are different types of leadership. It could either be you're a democratic and you are an autocratic. Sometimes uh, the autocratic people tend to be very very manipulative, but we will try to talk this sooner or later in our next topic. The third one is contingency theories. So, contingency theories of leadership focus on particular variables related to the environment that might determine which particular style of leadership is best suited for the situation. Accordingly to this theory, no leadership style is best in all situations. Okay, what we're talking here in the contingency theory, for example, I am a newly hired manager. Okay, take note. Okay, I resigned from a previous company and I was being offered for the job of this new company. Okay. Remember, in the environment of my former employer is different from the environment, is different from my new employer. That is what we're talking about here. In other words, the people that surround you in your former employer cannot be compared to the people that you will be working with in your new environment. Just we were talking here about situation, because in the long run, if you really don't understand how you be able to lead these people, okay, so sometimes based on experience, when I transfer from one company to the other, the best thing to do if you're new is to observe. Okay. You have to get to know the people, how they work, how they behave. And if you introduce some changes, you have to do it little by little. But of course, during my younger years, I am very tough. I'm very disciplinarian as a person. Okay. Based on experience, considering that you are very new in the organization and there you go, you want change and abrupt change. There are only two effects. People, the people that you will be working with, it could either be they will hate you or they will like you. Okay? So in other words, You have to look at the environment, you have to adapt the situation, and you have to uh, slowly introduce some changes. This is what we call by contingency measures. Leadership style is best in all situations. Okay, look at this picture, the boss and the leader. Okay, so sometimes there are people who are very autocratic. Okay, sometimes there are leaders who are democratic. Okay, but if you're going to ask me which is best, you are the boss or you are the leader, I cannot say that boss is better than leader and the leadership is, better than this, because in reality there are other organizations who are doing good because of this style. All right, so situational, it depends upon how you're going to adapt. In this contingency, good leaders are able to assess needs their followers, take stock of the situation, adjust their behaviors accordingly. So this is what I'm saying based on my own experience as well. So before you introduce of something, you have to understand these people. You have to connect with them. You have to be friend with them. And you have to use your emotions. Okay, take note of this. So, meaning to say, a leader should always have an emotional connections to the follower. Contingency theory of leadership is a very special kind of approach which states that the success of a leader does not only depend on his abilities. It's very, very clear. Okay? So, in other words, a contingency theory is a leader rather than a boss. Okay? A contingency theory is a democratic rather than autocratic. All right. So number 4, situational theories. Situational theories propose that leaders choose the best course of action upon the situation variables. Right? So different styles of leadership may be more appropriate for certain types of decision making. So here we go now. Now, try to look at this one, this picture here. Situations. So you might get confused, the other one, but here you are on the certain situation, but you have to adapt in a very detailed series of events. When you are going to deal with your people, in especially if you're going to make a decision. Okay, try to look at this one. In situational leadership, try to look at this. This one here, look at this one. Performing, norming, storming, forming. This is the process of coming up with a group. If you can still remember, I think we discussed this already. Okay. The process of putting people together, start, uh, I think here, forming, storming, norming. It's supposed to be here. This one's supposed to be the start, storming, norming. All right. So in the performing, they have to produce results already. Okay, it is opposite. All right, so try to look at this one. During formation of the group, the leader gives instruction. Okay, instructions. What are direct, clear goals and communicate? All right, so this is the first stage in which case a group is being formed. What the leader does is they have to talk and give a very clear instructions to these people. And these followers will also think and internalize. And later on, they have to talk to each other and relate to each other. Okay. In storming, they have the leader should convince. Okay. Remember last time in forming a group, since you have different types of personality, there are several situations in which you have to argue. Okay. You have to fight with their ideas, not necessarily a fight which is physically you're hurting with each other. No, you're sharing your thoughts, you're sharing your opinion, etc., so on and so forth. But sometimes a leader, it's very critical because a follower should sometimes insist based on what his opinion is all about. Okay, all right. So convince. So it is always a challenge of the leader during the storming stage, during the time that this is a stage. This is a very critical stage because this is the time that both will share his opinions and agree and disagree of something. This is also a thing that's a stage in which you have to get to know each other. Okay. So after a leader, for example, might be able to pass the stage, he will agree. Both will agree already. In other words, in this situation here, the leader was able to convince the member or the follower, and the follower performed his own job. Okay. And that's the time that there is a consultation there. Whatever happens, if there's any problem, and that makes the leader, that makes the job of leader easier now. Okay, so he is now leading, he is now giving, directing instead of disagreeing. Okay, so in the performing, try to look at this one. The members, the followers, they are already doing their job. They are performing, and the leader is on, it's now delegating instead of consulting, instead of convincing, instead of giving instructions. Okay, so situational. All right, different situation, and this is actually the challenge of a leader if we're talking about the situational theories of leadership. All right. Okay. For example, in a situation where leaders is the most knowledgeable and experienced member of the group, authoritarian style might be most appropriate. Okay, look at this one. For example, in a situation where the leader is the most knowledgeable and experienced member of the group, an authoritarian style might be most appropriate. Okay, so in this statement here, let's say, for example, if I am a leader, I know everything, and I am experienced than you do, then you have to follow what I say. This is what the theory is all about here. Autocratic. Okay? But in other instances where group members are skilled experts, a democratic style would be more effective. What do we mean by democratic? Because, you know, in this case here, you just have to assume that your people doesn't know anything. And that's the reason why the leader should always impose himself, being authoritarian. In other words, being autocratic is just follow what I say. Okay? Do not uh, obey first before you complain. That's just like a military. Okay? Because these people, your followers, doesn't know anything yet. But in a certain situation, in which case you are dealing with your members who are already expert, what you're going to do, what the leader do normally, because he is dealing with the experts, meaning to say his style will change also. Democratic, meaning to say, if you're going to use the democratic style, you are going to solicit the opinions of your co-members because in a way they are skilled. Sometimes there are things that you don't even know. Okay? So, as a leader, it is very important that you have to distinguish and you have to know your members, whether are they skilled or are they just beginners. So in this series, again, it says here, if you are dealing with the beginners, for the first timers, then authoritarian is the most appropriate. But if you're dealing with followers who are already knowledgeable and possess their own field of expertise, what you are going to do not quarrel with them. Do not act as you know better than them because you wouldn't know they are skilled than you do. So your style here will be democratic. When you say democratic, meaning to say you have to seek their opinion before you make a major decision. Okay? So in a democratic leaders, you have to encourage participation. Okay? You have to seek their opinion. And after seeking the opinion and becoming, let them participate, all of those you have to put things together and you have to collaborate already. And that makes your job easier. Okay? So in this case here, this is low task, high relationship. Okay, don't just confuse about this one. Let's say relationship and task behavior, and let's try to talk about this later. So, say, this is for example, this is this is the graph, and this is the approach that you're going to use if you're talking about the relationship behavior. In which case, in what way that you will be give a support. Okay, task behavior meaning to a certain job that you are giving to them, and at what point the intensity of the support that you can give, whether it's a low or high or task, or if you're talking about this kind of relationship. All right. So situational leadership, I think we discussed this already. At what point that you have to show your support, such as during time of the forming, delegating, participate, etc. I think that explains well. All right. So autocratic leadership is characterized by a centralization in decision making and directive power in a single dominant leader. Okay? So again, we were talking about for those for those leaders who are leading people with unskilled followers, meaning to say, they say uh, being autocratic, it's appropriate. Okay? For leadership style in which you are going to use democratic, you are dealing with persons who are skilled because you know, they know. So what you're going to do is to let them participate. You have to consult with them and in the long run encourage them to collaborate with each other. Okay, so what are those benefits then if you are using the autocratic? Okay, remember, look at this one. Quick decision making. Why it's quick? Because the communication is just one way. Follow what I do. Do not complain. Streamline work process, absolute control, focus targets, close purpose, mainstream order or discipline. Okay? So again, there is no wrong if you're going to use the autocratic, but again, it is also quite dangerous if you don't know how to detect what type of followers you have. Okay, because autocratic leadership, this won't work if you are dealing with persons who are skilled. Okay, so democratic leadership style is one that provides subordinates with the opportunity to collaborate with the decision making process. So in short, this is good because followers here are very cool. It's just the same as you're having fun. In a democratic type of leadership, you're just sharing your thought because you know the job, and you're just sharing your opinions, how to attack on a certain problem, especially if you're planning. Okay. All right. So that makes a leader, the life of a leader is more easier. Okay. So democratic leadership pros and cons. In the pros, the advantage is develops plan to help employees evaluate on performance. The other one here is some employees may prefer not to be involved. Okay, the opposite. Okay, so I think there's a need for me to discuss all of this. Okay, so number 5, in behavioral theories, leadership are based upon the belief that great leaders are made, not born. So consider it flip side of the great man. So if you can still recall about the great man. Okay, so the behavioral, it's rooted on behavior. This leadership theory focus on their actions of leaders, not mental qualities or internal. According to this theory, people can learn to become leaders through teaching and observation. Okay, take note of this. So you might do not get confused between skills and the behavior. Okay, so it's just there's a difference there. Okay, so in this behavior, it's rooted behaviorism. Okay, so people can learn to become leaders through teaching and observation. So going back, okay, going back to our example, if you are born in a family who are successful in their business, if you're born in the family of politicians, as the opposite to the child who is born in the poor family, and at the same time the resources are very very limited, so what do you expect? Okay, so the behavior of the parents can also be translated or can be influenced by the child as he grows old, right? So whatever the parents would teach the children or to the child, it gives them a greater advantage at the same time, because they're, let's say for example, if you are born rich, you don't have any choice. If you are the only child and your family owns several business establishments, for example, in Indonesia, do you have any choice? You don't have a choice. Why? Because once your parents will be gone, who will manage the businesses during those times when your parents are already weak. So you don't have any choice. All right? Okay. Now, behaviorism is also known as a behavioral psychology, is a theory of learning based the idea that all behaviors are acquired through conditioning. Okay? So, meaning, um, for example, if you try to look at this, there are some entrepreneurs, they don't even finish a degree. They don't have a college degree course, but they became very successful in their businesses through all the years. Okay, I am trying to discourage you to not to pursue with your education. Education is really very important to us. But in reality in life, there are some people who are exposed to their experience, but they don't have this kind of education as we are having, but they became very, very successful. But there, if you try to look at their stories, it doesn't happen just overnight. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of experiences, hard work, blah, blah, so on and so forth. So, and once the time comes that they become expert of the experiences that they've been through, meaning to say they were very, very, very successful already. Okay. So, conditioning occurs through interaction with the environment. Behaviorists believe that our responses to the environmental stimulus shape our actions. So, this theory is proposing the specific behaviors differentiate leaders from non-leaders. Okay. So, behavioral theories and the trait theory as well. Okay. So, two types of conditioning. There is what we call a classical conditioning. This is a technique in behavioral training in which neutral stimulus is paired with naturally occurring stimulus. So eventually, the neutral stimulus comes to evoke the same response as naturally occurring stimulus without the naturally occurring stimulus presenting itself. So this stimulus here, we might be referring this to the environment that the person grows with. Okay, so conditioning, it's how you are being formed through the times, through the environment that you were exposed, and as the time goes by, you are there already, and you'll become successful as a leader. And the operant conditioning, sometimes referred to as an instrumental condition, is a method of learning that occurs through reinforcements and punishments. Take note of these. Reinforcement and punishments. Okay. In the organizations or a different type of leader also, later on we will be talking about this style. All right. So sometimes uh, if you are in the human resources, when you tend to draw a policies of the organization, especially the employees handbook, it is there that what are the offenses and what are the different sanctions. Sometimes, if you'll be working there, when you violate a rule, for example, maybe you will be given a verbal warning. Next will be a written warning, maybe a suspension. And as the time goes by, when you tend to commit mistakes over and over again, suspension. And once it will become worse, you'll be terminated. And that is what we call a reinforcement punishments. Okay. So through operant conditioning is an association is made between a behavior and a consequence that behavior, right? But on the other side, if you are doing well, there is also a tendency that you will be rewarded. Okay? So there is a reward introduced in order to increase the production and to develop your behavior as well. So it's just a matter of how you manage your people in terms of how to condition or how you motivate them. Okay? But in the punishment introduced is to decrease behavior. That's the theory is all about. But sometimes you have to be very careful about punishment sometimes because be sure that when you give punishment, your follower or subordinate acknowledge his own or her own mistakes. Because sometimes people doesn't talk at all. In terms of understanding, people would hate you. And that's the reason why sometimes it's really very important that a leader and a follower, if there is a conflict or issue, they have to talk about it. Okay. Once you give a punishment, just make sure that the subordinate or the follower should understand why he is or she is being punished. Okay. On the opposite side, you have also to give reward. You have to let understand your followers why the reward is being given to them. Okay, so maybe because of a certain good deeds. Okay, in terms of productivity that the follower was able to contribute to the organization. In that case, they then deserve to receive a reward or an acknowledgement from the leaders or the other organization. Okay, so timing plays. So reinforcement schedules are important, operant conditioning. Again, so when you punish or you give reward, schedules here are very, very important. When you say timing, okay, at what point, like for example, you're going to call the attention of your follower, and what is the approach that you use, and that is the reason why sometimes there are some leaders who failed to implement this one because normally they shout at the people, instead of calling the attention and talk quietly and confidentially inside the office. All right. So this process seems fairly straightforward. Simply observe behavior and then offer a reward or punishment. Okay. So, however, Skinner discovered this. The Skinner here is a person, okay, who contributes this kind of theory. So, timing of these rewards and punishment has an important influence on how quickly a new behavior is acquired and the strength of the corresponding response. Okay, let's say, for example, a person or a follower who commits mistakes, and by giving a suspension or by giving an action, you still have to look at the person whether the person have changed already. Okay. All right. So that's quality of a leader. In other words, you have to know your people very well. The reason why you give punishment is just the purpose there is to let the person improve in terms of the behavior. Okay. But again, since we are having different types of personalities, you as a leader, you should make timing. Okay. Even though you are the leader, your follower deserves a respect. Okay, so respect is being given, it's not being asked. All right, so continuous reinforcement involves rewarding every single instant or behavior, and that's the reason why sometimes, okay, if you're a leader, there is really it is really very important you tend to talk to your people and ask, and sometimes it's really important that you have to tap the shoulder of your follower. Oh, hey, you did a good job today. Congratulations, very good, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. So these are positive reinforcements. Okay, so instead of shouting like, oh, why did you do that, blah blah, so on and so forth, that's too unprofessional. But sometimes, even though your followers commit a mistakes, it's a matter of approach. For example, oh, I heard that the customer is complaining about blah blah so on and so forth, and you have to let them talk. You have to ask why he did it that way, and there might be some reasons. For example, that why this person did that particular act. Okay, so the continuous reinforcement versus partial reinforcement is this: desired behavior is reinforced every time it occurs. When a person commits a mistake, okay, in other words, he should or call the attention. Just like for example, this one, no? When you're going to train a dog, okay, first when you train a dog, you have to give a certain task. You have to give a reward, reward one, reward two, reward three, until such time that the dog will get used to it. And I'm sure that you have seen a lot of dogs there. They are being trained and they will obey the command of the owners because they are being formed in terms of their behavior. Right? So, most effective when teaching a new behavior. So, sometimes it creates a strong association between behavior and the response. Okay? So, most effective once behavior has been established, new behavior is likely to disappear, various partial enforcement. So if you try to look at this example here, we will try to link this. Okay. A trainer or the owner of the dog, you are a leader in the organization, and the dog is actually, these are your followers. It's just a matter of how you're going to handle them. Take note of this. You have to know them whether they are skilled or not skilled, because if they are unskilled, sometimes you really have to reinforce in terms of being an autocratic. If there are skilled people, what your approach there is you have to be collaborative, encourage their participation. Okay. All right. So partial reinforcement involves offering a reward after a number of responses or after period time has elapsed. Okay. So reward and punishment. Now, question is, when do you when do you acknowledge the good deeds of your people, and when are you going to enforce punishments to your people? Okay. So number six, participative theories, leadership theories suggest that the ideal leadership style is one that takes the input of others into account. So encourage participation and contribution. So in participative theory, this is totally linked to a democratic type of leadership. Okay, so you acknowledge people's skills, you call them, put them together, and let them talk, let them speak, let them give them a space to prove their worth, motivate them, because there are skills already who are embedded already in their person as a in their being as a person, okay, as a worker. All right. So takes input of others. Or let's, for example, if you are going to make a project and this project shall be performed by by five persons. Okay, these five persons here has different skills. In order to come up with a project, meaning to say, the absence of one does not make a project uh, doable. So these five people, five members, should share their experiences, their talents and skills in order to come up and deliver the output of a certain project. So, what the leader should do? They have to encourage participation and contribution. Okay, so what is the leadership style here? In other words, what the theory is saying, use the use democratic type. Okay, from group members and help group members feel more relevant and committed to the decision making process. Okay, take note of this one. Each member of the team, they want to be acknowledged. They should feel that they are part of the group. Let them feel that their opinion are being considered in terms of coming up with their output and come up with a decision making, in which case they are part of it. Okay, so in the participative theories, however, the leader retains the right to allow the input of others. Okay, take note, the leader retains the right to allow the input of the others, meaning to say, if five people are contributing, just make sure and acknowledge that the effort, okay, of each of the members should always be acknowledged. Don't you ever set aside the effort of one, the effort of two, because they will really, really feel bad about it. And it gives a negative effect in the formation of your theory, okay? In the formation and giving output of the particular project. Okay? So we are now in the seven theories. The management theories, also known as the transactional theories, focus on the role of supervision, organization, and group of performance. So management theory, normally it is being used in the organization. That's the reason, if you notice, I keep on mentioning about organizations here. There's two theories: based leadership and system rewards and punishment, often used in business. When employees are successful, they are rewarded. When they fail, they are reprimanded and punished. Okay, so my example a while ago, and that's the reason why I keep focus more of the business organizations. My example is always organization, because it leads to somewhere else where you'll be part of years from now. Okay, I did not talk about politics because that's another subject there, but I just would like to refrain from using any examples because it might confuse you. So, in the management theories, try to observe or try to go back. How does an organizational structure look like? Okay, and our previous topics we were talking about organizations and the team. In the management, take note of this. There are different types of people in the organizations, and the organizations are really, really very complex because this organization is composed of different types of personalities. Okay, there may be people who possesses the introvert and the extrovert, but does not necessarily mean if you're introvert you are less productive. If you're an extrovert you are also better than the introvert. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, it is always a challenge of the leaders to take a look and know better about his followers in terms of the behavior and the character traits. All right, it is a must that a leader should know when to give a reward and when to call the attention because a follower commits a mistake, and it is the time. It's not really okay. In leadership, it's not really the intention to give a punishment, quote and unquote, but these things are being done in order to reform the person, to improve the person. All right? Not necessarily mean a punishment. I'm give the punishment because I hate the person. No, it's not. The purpose of the punishment actually in the working environment is to teach a lesson. Okay? Just like for example, um, in a classroom, your teachers are there, they're going to teach you. We are molding you, all right? But if some students are cheating, if some students are not submitting the requirement on time, it is the responsibility of teachers to call the attention of the students. Again, the purpose of a leader or a teacher, for example, or the manager, we are not doing this because we hate you, students. No, we are not. We don't hate you. We just would like to correct your mistakes. We just have to guide you in a certain direction, but later on, sooner or later, you will become productive in the society. And I'm telling you, this is one thing that I really love in teaching. All right. So, basic assumptions of transactional leaderships. Okay, transactions meaning in the organization. People perform their best when the chain of command is definite and clear. Take note of this chain of command, meaning to say, whatever your manager would say, it goes down to the assistant manager, to the supervisor, and down the line. Okay. And then if the group is doing good, it is the responsibility of the leader to give a rewards. Okay? To acknowledge the effort. To why? By giving rewards also is to motivate more and let your people grow. Okay? By giving a reward, it boosts the morale of your followers. Okay? Well, the punishment, again, I am telling you, when you receive a punishment, don't feel bad. It is okay. But for as long as the punishment is given is very objective, and that is the reason why there is in when you will be working later on, punishment is given in order to let you reform or to correct your mistakes. Okay? So reward, punishment, and motivate workers. This is the way how you will improve as a person. Okay? Obeying. The instructions and commands of the leader is primarily goal of the followers. Since we are talking about chain of command here, when your boss will tell you, then you have to obey. Okay? So what is the purpose of having a leader if you are not going to obey what the instruction is all about? Okay? So the instruction, a command coming from the leader, is a direction that is being given you on how you are going to do your job and in accordance to the expected output. So the instructions and commands of the leadership is primarily goal of the followers. Take note of this. When you'll be working later on, you are not there as a flower vase. You are not there as a decoration. You are hired by the company so that you have to perform a certain function. In return, your services are being paid. All right? Okay, so it's just very, very clear. The company that you will be working later on, you have a role to play, okay, in according to the objective of the organization in general. Okay, so subordinates need to be carefully monitored. Okay, so the followers needs to be carefully monitored. needs to be carefully coached by the immediate superior or the supervisor for improvement to ensure that expectations of the organizations are met. If the expectations are not met by the team, meaning to say you will have a problem there. And normally, the person who is always being questioned why the objective are not met is the leader of the organization. Because being as a leader, you have the accountability and the responsibility. And that is the reason why. Try to understand this chain of command. For example, if I am your manager and you commit a mistakes because of my instruction, then you don't have any accountability on that because the instruction it reflects on me. I gave that. When it fails, it's not your fault. That is my fault. But however, if I'll if I'll give you an instruction and then you did not follow the instruction that I told you and you did your own thing and it failed, meaning to say, that is not my problem, that is your problem. The leader is there to monitor and carefully study the movement, the output of every member, just to make sure whatever it is that's being instructed by the upper management, it should be cascaded, it should be translated into something according to the goals of the organization. So, as a follower, you have no choice than to obey. You follow. Again, what if you don't understand? Then do not hesitate to ask. Okay? The problem sometimes with the employees, this is based on the experience. Okay? I'm telling you. The typical employee, because they're having fear with the manager, and sometimes they would also say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. And as a matter of fact, they don't understand anything at all. Okay? Once you don't understand, do not hesitate to ask question, clarify everything. It's clear because remember, whatever the output would be, it will always affect the primary goal of the organization. Okay? All right. So, how transactional leadership work? Rewards and punishment and contingent upon. So, relationship between managers as an exchange. So, again, relationship between you and your manager. Okay? Sometimes this is a greater advantage if you're talking about democratic leadership. Because in the democratic leadership, sometimes you have very good, you have a very good, you are very comfortable with your immediate superior, or you make friends with them. But sometimes it is really very difficult to distinguish the relationship between an autocratic leader and at the same time, democratic. But again, it doesn't mean that you are autocratic leader. You don't have a good relationship. It is always your challenge as a leader. Remember, a leader should always possess this charisma. Okay? Charism. When I say charism, you should be a likable person. Why? Because there is a tendency. If your subordinates will afraid, be scared about your presence. Well, anyway, that's normal. But however, sometimes they do on their own without asking more clarifications. Okay? So when subordinates perform well, they receive reward. When they perform poorly, they will be punished in some other way. All right? So again, this statement is I'm not agreeable to this one. When they perform, they will be punished. No. In reality, no, you cannot just punish because as a leader, you have to find out why they perform poorly. Maybe a subordinate doesn't know the job well. Maybe the subordinate it's not fitted to this kind of job. Okay, again, I will more or less disagree on this one. Not all of the employees who delivers poor performance, they will always be punished most of the time. No, it is your responsibility as a leader to help improve or increase the productivity of your people. But in some other cases, if you found out that the person is really lazy, you know, he is not serious about the job, then that's the time that you have to punish the person or get rid of the person, eliminate or terminate the person or transfer to other department. Because in some other cases, this type of personality, the person who is not fitted for the job, he might be able to destroy the entire team. Okay, so in this type of leadership management, we have to follow rules and procedures and standards. Leaders, leader at the same time, the followers should follow the company policies and the procedures because the standards are there. These standards should always be maintained because this is the only way that we can compete in the market. Okay, so that's how it is in the transactional. When is transactional leadership most effective? Followers are not encouraged to be creative. Research has found blah blah so on and so forth. All right, so it can also work well in crisis situations by assigning clearly defined duties. Particular individuals, leaders can ensure that those things get done. So again, it's very important also that the leader should always be monitoring. Should there be any improvement? Should there be any part members of the team that are not performing well? So try to call the attention and have a short talk with a person. Try to find out what's the problem, and you have to give some advices. All right. So transactional leaders focus on the maintenance of the structure of the group. They are tasked with letting group members know exactly what is expected, articulating rewards, performing tasks, blah blah blah. If you noticed sometimes, if you're able to visit in some of the organizations, there are some words there posted at the reception areas like vision, company mission. All right. That vision there reminds of the objective of the organizations. All right. The mission there is reminds of how for example, um, this company can contribute something, and in what way that this company contributes something to the community. Okay, so how the organization will meet this vision? It's through their own people. Their people should be rewarded, should be coached, not necessarily be punished, but they have to give them tools, they have to give them the resources, and most probably they will be heard about their feedback. It could either be positive or negative. That's always a challenge of a leader. The last one is relationship theories. Okay, relationship theories also known as transformational theories. Transformational leaders, it is the responsibility of the leader to motivate and inspire. Remember this one. If you will become a leader later on, it is your responsibility. And that's the reason why a while ago the statement is if a person delivers poor performance, it should be punished. No, it should not be that way. It should be motivate and inspire. All right. So these leaders are focused on performance group members, but also want every person to fulfill their potential. All right. So remember this one. If you're an employee and you work so hard and your immediate superior doesn't even notice your performance, it really feels sad as an employee. Okay. Take note of this one. So if you're a leader, even a small accomplishment of your people, you really have to get noticed it. Okay? You have to give credits. Oh, I noticed that you did well in your job. Congratulations, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Because the more motivated you are, the more inspired you are, and you will be challenged in order to achieve your goal. Remember this one. If the organization has this kind of objective to earn profit, the members also they have their own objective. The members they also have the followers should also have their own dreams and aspirations. All right. So if the members are being deprived of of not being given this kind of motivation, that's too unfair because sooner or later you'll be losing group good people who can be an asset to the organization. All right. So leaders with styles often have high ethical and moral standards. I don't know if this one still exists today. Because if we're talking about high ethical and moral standards, for me today it's quite questionable. Okay, but in business, I don't know if this high ethical and moral standard exists, but it should be because the organization, its main objective is not only to earn profit but also to help the community as well, and that is corporate social responsibility. All right, so I think we are on time. Am I correct? So, is there any questions you might ask, or if we still have time for our question and answer? Are you still awake?
Sir, I want to
Hello?
ask question.
Are you still okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sure.
Yes,
Yes,
sure.
sir.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if you are still there. All right. Okay. Okay. Mr. Hanapi, are you there?
Yeah, sure.
Mr.
I
Hanapi.
mean, yeah, sure.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
what time is it
I,
now? Do we still have time?
yes, sir.
Okay. So uh students, it is your chance to talk now. Don't be afraid. Or you might want to share your thoughts, your experiences, and your observations. Not necessarily mean that you are going to ask questions. Okay? Based on your own observations. All right? So, how many theories that we were discussing today? There are how many theories?
Eight, sir. Eight theories.
Eight. Eight theories. Okay.
Okay, please, Anissa.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are theories. So of the eight theories, what are those factors that strikes you most if you're going to relate that to reality? Okay, your own observations. Like for example, I know that you are still very young, but just like for example, when you go out and go something in the grocery store, I think you have observed that people are working there, uh, try to reflect the scenarios and the theories that we were discussing a while ago. Mm, your own observations. No more? Oh, don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Are you learning?
Excuse me, sir. Can you repeat again?
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Okay. What I'm saying is we have discussed the eight theories, right? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So, meaning to say, I know that you are still very young, but I'm sure you were able to go to different department stores or malls and buy something, and you were able to interact with the different employees, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you get me? Do you hear me? And then, of the different situations, for example, in your observations, all right, you may be able now to connect to the any of those theories, for example, based on your own observations. Can you recall? Let's say if you see a cashier, if you see a salesperson doing his job, okay, and how you will able to describe the person in terms of reflecting to the theories that we have discussed a while ago. There is no right or wrong. It is okay to share. Do you get the point? Do you get what I'm saying? Anissa?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, so any opinion?
What the point, sir? I cannot.
Okay, no, it's okay. Now what I'm saying here is this. So you were able to visit a department store, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, you were able to go somewhere, for example, eat at the restaurant, and then you see different employees, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we were seeing these employees who are working in the organization as part of the team. Okay, and then basically, let's assume or put this way that they have different immediate superiors who are being called as leaders, right? Okay. Now, my point here is this. of all the things that you have observed, the things they do, their behavior, etc., can you connect this, for example, to our any of our to our topic today, which is the theories of uh, the eight theories of leadership? Oh, I'll give you one example. All right. Okay. So, do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Maybe,
So, okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
maybe I can give my opinion.
Very
So,
good. Okay.
um, I do my tasks yesterday about the leadership concept, and I'm analyze uh, leadership concept about Jeff Bezos. Do you know Jeff Bezos, sir? The
Just go ahead.
CEO, yes, Amazon. Yes,
Okay.
yes, and I analyzes him, and I think his leadership theories is
Mm-hmm.
transformational. Yes,
Good. Very good.
yeah,
Why
and
you were able to say so? Why it's
because
transformational?
because I analyzed about his article in the Forbes magazine and
Mm-hmm.
etc. And uh, he is inspiring and motivates a leader for his team like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Forbes magazine, it explains if that Jeff Bezos is a transformational leader because he's very very give inspiring for his team. And do you know if Jeff Bezos uh, uh,
Go ahead. You are there.
yes sir, yeah, like that.
Okay. So, all
Okay.
right, very good for sharing. All right. So, in other words, what you were saying is this: um, the type of leader that you made mention, you are describing the person as he is transformational, right? You were the reason why you said that this leader is a transformational because he gives inspiration. All right.
Yes,
He gives the reason why, and then if you are a follower and if you are being inspired, basically there's a tendency that you have to do more and exert a lot of effort. Okay, so if you are going to imagine like you are working in the organization and you are a great leader who inspires and motivates your workers, remember, out of the 10 motivated workers, they will produce more. Okay, they will give more production, something that can contribute to the organization. And on the personal growth, meaning to say that's transformational because a person who gives his best, the advantage there is he or she is going to learn of something along the process in terms of the experience, and this experience will grow more and more, and later on the experiences will also bring him to somewhere else that improves his profession. Okay, is being as an employee, and sooner or later in turn, he or she also become a leader in the near future. Okay, that's a very good point. That's a very good observation. All right.
yes sir,
Okay, that's
thank
nice.
you.
Very good.
I'm sorry I cannot explain anymore.
It's okay. It's more than enough already. Okay, that's good. That's good. But I would like to commend you also because you keep on reading articles, etc., so on and so forth. All right. So for today, I encourage you. Um, During my generation, remember this. During my generation, our life as a student is really different from yours. During those times, we don't have the internet. Okay. Normally, if we try to discover of something, we have to go to the library and borrow several books, number of books, just to read them. In your case, the internet is there. The social media is there. So get used to it. Okay? Do not be contented of what you have. The things that we teach you, your teachers, no. Then do some readings, research in because it adds something. All right? So take an advantage over the technology there. All right? So very good. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. What else? The more?
Any more students? Okay. Maybe enough, sure. And time's up.
Okay. All right. So thank you. I hope you learned something today. Please do not forget all the learnings that you got every time that we are having our discussions, because definitely you'll be using this somewhere along the way. All right. Okay. So that's it. No more. So that's my mission for the day.
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Hanapi. I'll see you. Students, I'll see you next week then. All right. Okay. Bye bye.
Okay.
And
Bye
have a
bye.
nice day. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Thank
Bye.
you, sir. See you
Bye.
next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Oke, terima kasih teman-teman atas partisipasinya hari ini untuk mengikuti perkuliahan dengan Dr. Ramil. Kita ketemu lagi minggu depan dengan topik yang lainnya terkait dengan kepemimpinan. Mungkin untuk minggu depan kita akan berdiskusi terkait dengan mempengaruhi, bagaimana seorang pemimpin dia mempengaruhi bawahannya. Ataupun juga nanti bisa minggu depan itu kekuasaan untuk memimpin. Ya, sebentar untuk presensinya. Apakah sudah terlihat di tempat teman-teman?
Sudah, Pak.
Sudah, Pak.
Oke, silakan untuk segera mengisi sebagai presensi. Oke, mungkin saya cukupkan untuk hari ini. Kita ketemu lagi minggu depan. Terima kasih. Selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, Pak.
Terima kasih, Pak. Terima kasih, Pak.
Oke, saya akan end meeting untuk